It's my great pleasure to introduce to you international recording artists. Make some noise for April Wine!
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are here for yet another in our April Wine series. Tonight I've got Tim Durling and Dave Lubin, and we are going to talk about the April Wine live albums. So without any further ado, let's get this one started. Rock Warehouse and to yet another in the April Wine series. It looks like it's just us three tonight, but what we are doing tonight is looking at those April Wine live albums. We're winding up this series. We're almost done. It's been a year of April Wine pretty much, but we're down to just the live records. Now we're just going to keep it loose, keep it general, because I mean, we're talking, how many records do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 7 different live albums they've put out over the years. Now, some of us may like that early period of April Wine. Some people might like that classic period with Nature of the Beast. Or some of us may like some of that later period. All of those are represented. So we're just going to kind of just do a general discussion and talk about what we like and what we don't like. You know, like I said, on this channel, and we'll probably go off into a tangent because we do that a lot of times. So anyway, I want to welcome Tim Durling here tonight. Tim's been here since the beginning. Dave Lubin is here. And of course, your host, Grant Arthur. And I thank you, gentlemen, for coming on tonight and talking more April Wine. Like I said, we're winding this series up. The next show that we're going to do, we're just going to rank everything that we did. Because in the beginning, you might look at some of these records differently. And after reviewing them and discussing them, it's interesting to see what we can come up with in the end. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get started talking about these live records. I guess I'll throw it over to Tim. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a big order to fill talking about these records, but Tim, let's throw it over to you and let you give us your thoughts like we always do on this series.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah,
of course.
I'm going to miss talking about April Wine, but it's cool that we're talking about the live albums because April Wine actually have the distinction of being the band I've seen more than any other band. I've seen them 5 times.
So lucky.
First show was in 94, which is late from around here, considering I'm from the Maritimes, but I didn't get into them till like 93. Beginning in 94. So it just so happened they were coming through on what would have been the Frigate tour. And yeah, they were great. And I've seen them I think in those 5 times that I've seen them in 3 different incarnations. Because the first time I saw them was that 5-piece lineup that was on Attitude and Frigate when they had Steve Siegel on second guitar. When I saw them the next couple of times, actually the next 3 times, it was just a 4-piece. So it was just Miles Goodwin, Brian Greenway, Jim Clench, Jerry Mercer. And the last time I saw them, which has been 15 years now, Jim Clench had left and he also sadly passed away. And a guy named Breen LeBoeuf was on bass. And they've, now it's basically Brian Greenway, not even an original member because Miles has stepped back. He's doing a few solo shows and they got another guy singing and playing guitar. So, it's kind of weird to think about an April Wine without Miles. But anyway, we'll get into the live albums, the official ones. There's lots of bootlegs out there and stuff. But 1974 actually would have been the 4th April Wine album. And this is one of those ones that never came out in the States. And I got to show the 8-track because I've got my 8-track shirt on here. Got to represent.
There you go.
This is one of those ones. I love this. Has the arrows on it because obviously they were having problems. People didn't know which way to insert them into the player. This is called just April Wine Live. I've also seen it called Live Play Loud. This is an album where you have to turn down the bass. You do not have to turn it up. Lots of bass on this one. This is very, very early. This is a tour that was called the Electric Adventure. They were touring on Electric Jewels. So it was, the first classic lineup. So Jim Clench is in the band, Jerry Mercer, Gary Moffat, and Miles Goodwin. No songs from the debut. There's songs from Electric Jewels and On Record, the second album. And they also premiere a live version of what would have been a single for them, I'm on Fire for You, Baby, which never appeared on any one April Wine album. It appeared on several hits packages, but it's on here live. And the live albums didn't exist on CD until Unidisc put them out. So this is the reissue disc, which is really, really well done. And it's the first appearance on record, no pun intended, of Jerry Mercer's drum solo, which is he's always done, which is the one where, you know, he'll do his usual solo, but then he'll do the thing where he's got one stick going and then he switches the stick and then he gets faster and fast, and it doesn't sound like he's switching hands. Doesn't matter how many times I saw it, it was always great. Raw, just a raw band. Everybody sings really, really well. I especially love Jim Clench doing Cat's Claw on here. You know, I wouldn't start with this one as a fan, but if you really want to dig back to hear what they sounded like, it's quite a bit. I'm going to say it's more heavy. It's heavier, and it's definitely more live, obviously, sounding than the studio albums from the time. It really makes that material come alive. There's a great energy to it. You want me to just keep going through the live albums? Or...
Well, I was just going to say the personnel on this record, it's Miles, Jim Clench, Gary Moffat, and Jerry Mercer. Yeah. It's not the classic lineup like we think with Harder, Faster. And
right, but that's why
we're getting there, though. We're getting there.
Yeah, it's the first classic lineup. Yeah.
Right, but you've got Gary Moffat and Miles just pretty much trading guitar solos and playing.
Yeah.
This, I think this is a great. I'm not sure if this is what I would pick for someone to start out with. Like I said, it's like, you know, Tim, it depends upon what you're into. This has a lot of the early stuff on it. Doesn't have any of that classic period stuff on there. But I must say, yeah, you're right. All about the bass. I mean, for starting out with one of the first live albums, I think it's great. I don't know. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, as far as classic material, just real quick, what the only song your average fan would know would be "You Could Have Been a Lady."
Mm-hmm. And you know this track lineup is really condensed. I'm not sure all what they were playing on that tour, but this only has 8 tracks on it. And you know they played a lot more than that. But
see, the thing for this is that a lot of the songs that are played on this, basically, it was the last time they were played live. They never did any renditions of it live in later tours. Even when they toured in the 2000s, and they would bring back songs like, you know, songs like Druthers, Mamas, It's True, a lot of stuff from on record. You never heard, if you want to hear those things live, those songs, this was your opportunity to do so. And I do like the fact that I do really like the fact that it has a version of Cat's Claws. I think that is my favorite Jim Clench song, although I really like a lot of Jim Clench songs. But I did get to hear that one live in 2003 when he returned to the band. Sorry, not in 2003, in 1992. But basically, this is a chance to hear live songs from on record and Electric Jewels, as Tim said. And you get to hear an early version of and the other thing is that I doubt a lot of production money was put into this, and it actually sounds quite good. So you get a feel for how did this band develop. Basically, what this band was known for was touring. They would just tour the country from West Coast to East Coast, East Coast to West Coast. They go to small cities, big cities. And you know, if a smaller city, let's say, had a 5,000 seat arena, they would sell it out, and they would tour like a big band in little cities across Canada. And it really kind of started with this Electric Adventure tour.
Well, this record was produced by Gene Cornish and Dino Denali, so they must have had some money to pay those guys,
right?
And they aren't any slouches as far as producers go, but. You know, I think it's an okay start. I don't know. Tim, you have anything else to add to this?
Well, it's interesting because, they were always perceived as this big band because, like Dave said, they just crisscrossed the country back and forth. And it's like, you know, if you've seen April Wine, it's like, well, how many times? And from the, you know, almost from the beginning. The other thing is, and maybe Dave can answer this question, I have never heard tell of any live renditions of any of the songs from the debut, like even Fast Train. Like, did you ever hear live versions of any of the songs from that first album, Dave?
Fast Train, absolutely. It's the only one, because if you think about it, Miles doesn't sing many of the songs on the debut album, but also that was the hit song. But when they started touring again in 1992, I saw them about, I believe, 4 times. Fast Train, I think, was, I'm going to say, in every single one of those shows.
I'd love to have heard that live. I love the midsection of that when it kicks in, and it's a cool song.
In fact, the last time I saw them, that was the first song. He opened with Fast Train. So he kind of went, he's kind of started off in order. He opened with Fast Train, then they did some stuff from On Record, like You Could Have Been a Lady and Drop Your Guns. And then they kind of did more of a mishmash. But you saw that the beginning of the show was, let's go back to the beginning. I noticed, I saw REO Speedwagon this year, and I noticed that they did something like that by opening up with Music Man. I don't know if you guys are fans of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's off REO too.
Yeah.
So that kind of a concept. And I think that was the first one that might have gotten radio play. So
I haven't heard, well, I might have heard them play that before, but holy crap, that's been a long time since they've been playing that. Yeah. But maybe they do that more recently, you know, I don't know, but that's great. Music Man, I'll be darned. Well, we're going to jump to 1977 and we're going to talk about Live at the El Mocambo. This is the second live album. This is when they opened up for the Rolling Stones. And it was one of those Rolling Stones gigs where it was like one of those surprise appearances. So April Wine open. We've still got the same lineup. Miles, Gary. Well, no, I take it back. Jim Clinch is out.
Yeah.
We're getting close to that classic lineup. Miles Goodwin, Gary Moffat, Steve Lang, and Jerry Mercer. This was, Eddie Kramer was the producer engineer on this, but Miles produced She's No Angel. I think the recording on this is very clean. I'll give it that. It almost doesn't sound like it's live. It almost sounds like it's recorded in the studio. Tim Durling, what's your thoughts on this one?
This is an interesting one. I mean, there's an interesting story behind it, of course, the whole thing about the Rolling Stones doing a club tour and, you know, the Prime Minister's wife, Margaret Trudeau, was out partying with the Stones and, you know, a lot of notoriety there. And yeah, the April Wine were opening for a band called the Cockroaches. That was their code name. And I like this on the bottom here, if you can see that. But it says, let me see if I can read it off the CD. To April Wine, thanks for helping us out this week and the best of luck. With love, the Rolling Stones. So that's kind of cool. I like the tropical, like it's kind of it doesn't really look like a rock album. It looks like a yacht rock album.
It looks like a yacht rock album.
It looks like a Pablo Cruz album or something. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, it's got a nice gatefold. The El Mocambo is a classic club in Toronto. I mean, Elvis Costello, I think, recorded something there. Stevie Ray Vaughan, early in his career, recorded there. And it's recently been opened up again, and which is kind of cool. So yeah, this came out in 77. This is one of those albums that came out in the States too. And I have the US London Records 8-track. This is actually a Columbia house. Now, this one doesn't have She's No Angel on it. She's No Angel is a studio track. I like it, but it's not on here. Teenage Love was a song that didn't appear on any of their albums, but it's live. They do it live. That one and Juvenile Delinquent are both written by a guy named Bob Cigarini, which is a name people can look up. It's been associated with different things. Why they chose to do 2 of his songs in this live album, I don't know. There isn't anything on here from the first album. Obviously, there isn't anything from Electric Jewels. A lot of songs from On Record and Stand Back, which were both released in the States. Now, slightly different track listing between the US and the Canadian versions. The US version had You Won't Dance With Me, which was not on the Canadian version. My understanding is that that's just a studio track with live applause added. But I'm happy to report another reissue from Unidisc restores actually kind of both track listings. So it's got You Won't Dance With Me on here, but it also has Gimme Love, which makes it the only thing from The Whole World's Going Crazy on here. It's a good recording. My personal tastes, I don't like it quite as much as the first one. It's not as raw. It's not as heavy. Good song selection. I like the fact it's got the curiosity of having Steve Lang, the new bass player, sing "Who What a Night." So there's been at least 3 guys in April Wine take the turn at that song. Nobody does it better than Jim Clench, but there's another version of that we're going to get to. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't start anyone out with this,
No.
but it's curiosity value makes it really interesting. And for Rolling Stones fans, they know that at least part of their album "Love You Live" was recorded that same night, or one of the nights that April Wine opened for them. And it was also, I think, done by Eddie Kramer.
Yep. Dave Lubin, what you think? What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I actually really like this album. I remember when I bought it. The first thing is that I found the Bob Segreny songs to be quite cool. Teenage Love, the opener. I don't know if they really opened it sounded like they did actually open the show with that one, and Juvenile Delinquent. I don't believe they ever did those songs again. I actually took the time to find those songs done by Bob Segreny. They sound very different. So kind of typical to what April Wine does when they, take these songs that maybe aren't terribly well known.
Yeah.
They made it their own. So his is more, I don't even know how to describe, maybe kind of more of a bluesy type sound, I guess. But I think those 2 songs sound particularly good. What's interesting is that when they came back in 1992, they played a lot of bars, and that more sort of hard bar band sound that comes out more in this album. And then a lot of these songs do sound particularly good because they can be played in smaller venues. So I thought they had particularly good renditions of "Drop Your Guns." I think sounds fantastic. I like the bridge into "Tonight Is a Wonderful Time to Fall in Love." I think that's a great version. As I said, I really do like the versions of the 2 Bob Segreny songs. In terms of the album itself, when you actually, because I've been to the El Mocambo in Toronto, its location is just actually outside of Chinatown, is where it is. And you can actually, these palm trees are part of their sign. It's kind of a signature thing that's part of the El Mocambo sign. And what's interesting about this is in some ways it's kind of like the last of that era of April Wine, because it's right after this album that Brian Greenway joins. As a result of them opening up for the Rolling Stones actually had them open for a few shows in the United States, including in Buffalo, not long after. They were extremely well received there, and I believe that helped them get that Capitol Records contract that was so important to, getting some success in the USA that they were striving for so long. So, anyway, I probably, if I'm going to recommend an April Wine album, I think I do like this one the best because it is a little bit different. It's got a little bit different sound to it. So I probably like this one the best, although all of them have kind of their own niche, as we're going to discuss.
They're all a little bit different.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, I totally get that, but it's not, I don't know. I could never gel with the El Mocambo one. It always seemed to be very kind of laid back to some degree, and I like my April Wine a little bit more aggressive. And it's very clean sounding recording. You could hardly ever tell it's really live. I don't know. It's just weird. It's not weird, but it does capture that era, I think, well, but I don't know. I just need a little bit more, So I don't know if I could recommend this.
Don't push me around as far as like they do a little jam on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. I don't know. I mean, the reviews on it pretty much, it's all music gave 2 out of 5. So they're not thinking it's all that great. And, it's okay. It's foreshadowing of what's coming. We're getting prepped for the main stuff. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, I'm not sure how we want to do this, but we're kind of winging it. We had Live in London, which is a DVD. There you go, 1981. So that would technically be the next thing. I don't have Live in London. I really can't speak about it, but I remember seeing that on either like Night Flight. I think it was Night Flight. Back in the day, they used to play it. So I haven't seen it since then. I haven't ordered me the DVD yet. But Dave, are you familiar with that one? The DVD, or back in the day, the whole What was it? Nature of the Beast?
Yeah,
That's what it was, right?
It was the Nature of the Beast tour. So interesting approach when they did the Nature of the Beast. When they released the Nature of the Beast album, the first place they went to, as I recall, was Europe. And it was for me as a fan, it was really exciting to finally see, April Wine finally. If I went down to Florida or something like that, I would actually finally hear them on the radio.
Right.
And I remember it was exciting that, hey, they're going to show this concert on TV. So I would have been about 16, 17 at the time. And I do remember watching the show. So the DVD would be that show that I saw. And essentially, for the most part, it's mainly songs from Nature of the Beast, All Over Town, Sign of the Gypsy Queen, Just Between You and Me. I remember they did a version of Caught in the Crossfire, and that one didn't make the Canadian tour, but I always liked that song from that album. So I honestly, I haven't, except for occasionally I'll watch maybe a clip on YouTube. I haven't really followed it since then. It just brings me back to a time remembering the excitement of, watching them play this Live in London tour on television, and I got a preview of what I was about to see. So
I'm like you. I just remember watching it on Night Flight and just sitting there as a kid going, just thinking that only like a few years before I saw them live, and how far they've come, and they're doing, it's a gig from Europe. I'm just saying it's London. Yeah, but incredible. But yeah, I'm like you, Dave. I just remember seeing it when I was a kid. But Tim Durling does have the DVD, and he has probably studied this thing like you wouldn't believe. So, Tim, what's your thoughts? Well, I'm just saying, you've got
it's funny. I heard about this long before I actually saw it, and long before this company called Cherry Red put it out on DVD, which I'm glad they did, even though there's a ton of mistakes with the titles. They get so many of the titles wrong anyway. I had a copy of it that somebody had must have recorded from the VHS, because it originally came out on VHS and beta. And this was a time when home videos of any sort, not every band did them. I know like Rush had Exit Stage Left. I think that REO had one called Live Infidelity, and they probably retailed for 60, 80 bucks. I mean, not many people would have had these, right? But I do know that the two of the clips on here were two of the videos played on MTV's first day of broadcast in August of 1981. As a matter of fact, April Wine were the very first Canadian act played on MTV, and they got played twice. So they played clips from Just Between You and Me and Sign of the Gypsy Queen. Those clips would have come from this concert. Now, one thing that's interesting, because I saw a copy that was kind of ripped or whatever, recorded from the VHS, they cut a little bit of the beginning of it out on here. For all of you new wave of British heavy metal fans, you might be surprised to know the opening act was Diamond Head, which you wouldn't necessarily have thought would be opening for April Wine. Now, it's interesting. April Wine, they must have known. Also, I'm pretty sure they recorded at least part of Nature of the Beast in London with Mike Stone. It's the first time they worked with Mike Stone. Every song from Nature of the Beast is on here. They're not in order, but all 11 songs from that album, I think, are on here. So it's Big City Girls, Crash and Burn, Telling Me Lies, Future Tense. Then they do Ladies Man from Harder Faster. Crossfire. It says Caught the Crossfire, Sign of the Gypsy Queen, Just Between You and Me, Bad Boys, One More Time, and All Over Town. So what are we missing? We're missing one then. Where did I mess that up? Oh, no, it's on here. I Want to Rock. It's Wanna Rock. So yeah, they do all the songs from Nature of the Beast, and the only other ones they do
couple of them for Harder Faster. Yeah.
I Like to Rock, 21st Century Schizoid Man, Ladies Man, and Roller. So nothing, and this is getting into that era where nothing before First Glance.
It's the classic era. They're not touching anything prior.
No. It's a cool snapshot of the band at that time. It's cool the fact that I've seen them in small little clubs to see the big venues that they played at one time. It's very early 80s in its editing. There are clips in between the songs of them like touring around London, and it cuts back into songs. And then it does that effect, and I don't know how to describe it, but it seems to me there's parts where they'll be playing and the music will keep going, but they'll do a still image, and then all of a sudden it's very early 80s. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's quaint. I
Well,
quite like it. It was eventually issued as a standalone CD. I don't have that, but I know what it sounds like. The band sounds good. There is one other thing I want to talk about from this era. And as I've said many times, April Wine have songs that were B-sides that have never been officially released digitally or on CD, but not a lot of live versions. I've got an Aquarius Records single for All Over Town. The B, let me take this single out here. The B-side is a live version of All Over Town. I don't know if this was released in the States or not, but it was recorded.
I don't know.
Recorded
I don't
at the
think so.
Aladdin. It was recorded at the Aladdin Theater for the Performing Arts in Los Angeles, April 27th, 1981. And, Miles does this little crowd thing in the middle of it where he's trying to get the crowd to sing, "I don't care, we don't care." So it's kind of cool. I've never heard tell of it showing up anywhere else. So I wanted to give that a shout out.
Tim, does it say Los Angeles? Because actually, I'm familiar with that show because I remember hearing that one too. That the Aladdin Theater was in Las Vegas, and they did play a live stream of April Wine playing at the Aladdin Theater in Las Vegas, and then
that sounds more right. It says Los Angeles on here, but it must be a typo. But
I think it is.
It says recorded live by Starfleet Blair Incorporated, April 27th.
Starfleet. Wow.
Yeah, at the Aladdin Theater for the Performing Arts of Los Angeles. But you're right, it's not Los Angeles, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's cool. It's a cool live version. I wish they would do something with those stray B-sides, but that's another story.
Mm-hmm. But if you want a DVD and see the band live back in the day,
oh yeah, you can get it pretty cheap, I think, used.
Mm-hmm. I still need to get it. I need to fill that void that I have for that.
April Wine, surprise! All these years later, and I don't know if it's through the band's decisions or whatever. There's not a lot of. They only did 2 home videos in their career. They did that live one, and then in 1984, Sony did this series of what they called video 45s, which they would put. Yeah, they put a videotape out with 4 videos on them, and April Wine has one of those. It's got a picture on them from the video to This Could Be the Right One, where Jerry Mercer's dressed up like a Jedi Knight, and and it's got a couple videos from Animal Grace and a couple from Power Play. That's it. There's no, and I'd love to see a modern. I've seen there's lots of stuff on YouTube, but it's too bad they didn't officially release something, especially the one that we're going to talk about later. I don't know why they didn't put it out on.
I don't know.
On video.
Well, I think this is a good one to get. If you're going to get anything, well, I don't know yet. If you're looking for video, I think this is probably what you want, because it does capture that whole nature of the Beast period. And, that's probably the peak. That's probably the peak.
You can also see, you can go on YouTube and find one where they performed, I think it was a show on the BBC called Rock Goes to College. And they performed, it's on the Harder Faster tour. And there's pretty good video footage of that floating around because it was filmed by the BBC. It's never been officially released. You can watch it on YouTube. That's pretty solid. Like that would have been the era you saw them in, the Harder Faster era. So
yeah, I love that. Oh, I'll never forget that era. All right, so probably the next one I'm going to say would be the King Biscuit Flower Hour CD, which, well, I don't know. Chronologically, it came out in 99, but it was recorded. Yeah, you're right. It was recorded, what, 82?
Yeah, it was on Power Play tour.
Yeah, Power Play tour. So we'll jump to that one. Me personally, I'm just going to go out there. This one is my favorite because, of course, I love Power Play. I like the song selection. Something about those whole King Biscuit Flower Hour things just had some kind of magic to them. I don't know how they chose these shows, but, back in the day, I remember when this was on the radio and listening to it. So maybe because it's nostalgic, I don't know. But yeah, it does capture the Power Play tour and, anything you want, future tense, crash and burn. So you've got a mix. You don't have anything early. Well, you do have one song that's early. Yeah.
Two, actually. Two.
Oh, yeah. You Could Have Been a Lady, which is a bonus track. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a really, really good one.
It's really good.
And by the way, I think this was also on MTV and professionally filmed, but never officially released. There's a show from the Power Play tour from Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's really, really, really good. There's footage out there. I wish that they, maybe it's a rights thing. Maybe they can't get the rights to it from EMI. I don't know. But yeah, the King Biscuit started releasing some of their concerts. I remember they were syndicated. I remember hearing concerts from King Biscuit.
Oh yeah,
nights late at night, later in the '80s. But then they started digging into their archive. The Triumph one is really good. Deep Purple one.
I've got
really
the Billy
Kansas
Squire
really
one.
good.
I got Billy Squire. That's good.
But this one is really, really well done. I'd like to know more about where You Could Have Been a Lady come from, because it says from the 1985 King Biscuit concert. There were no April Wine shows in 1985. They were pretty much defunct. So it must have come from an earlier era. But
yeah, I'm thinking it might have that might have come from that one more for the tour, or sorry, One More for the Road tour, because that one, and I made these notes. On that album, they don't have You Could Have Been a Lady, but I know for a fact it was performed on the tour. So I'm thinking that they might have had that and then been able to put that on that one. I believe that the MTV concert was filmed, I think, in Wichita, Kansas, or maybe South Dakota.
This was Wichita, because I know that when at the beginning, when they're doing anything you want, where it's like, so do you want it? Yeah. At one point, Miles goes, Wichita, do you want it? So
there you go.
And it was like some sort of a simulcast. I think it was with Steve Miller or something like that, because there's a point where he gives a shout out, hey, let's say hi to Steve. I think it was Steve Miller, because I've actually watched it on YouTube clips.
That would make sense, because they were both on Capitol, so maybe it would. Yeah,
well,
but really good solid performance.
I think it's a good place to start so far. After all what we've looked at, of course, I'm going to be a big fan of that classic lineup, and this is like at the tail end of it. I don't know, Dave, what do you have to add to this? Anything you want to add to the King Biscuit?
As I said, I was aware that this particular concert was put on MTV, long after the fact. I mean, at the time I didn't have MTV, so all these things I found out, all the stuff that Tim said. April Wine was the first Canadian band played on April Wine. Sorry, on MTV. I found out all this long after the fact, but they were played quite a bit on MTV the first day. Just Between You and Me was played the second most.
Oh my God, yes, yeah.
So it was. So they had, and apparently enough is enough, and they got a decent amount of airplay on MTV as well. The one thing I was going to add about this Power Play tour in general, though, you were just talking about the band that backed up April Wine in London. Well, the person who backed up April Wine for a lot of those U.S. shows was Eddie Money. And I mean, the reality is Eddie Money was a much bigger star than April Wine ever was. I mean, Eddie Money had, I don't know how many top 10 hits, top 40 hits. But I think he was in a little bit of a down period, although he did come back.
His second and third album did do very well. But then I think it was that same year he had the, what was it called? The album was called No Control, but then he had Think I'm in Love, which is a big hit. And that kind of brought him back.
Yeah, No Control here in the States was a big record. You could not escape Eddie Money.
And Shake It.
Oh my God, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. But it's a good record, so I get it. It was full of hits. But the next one I guess we can jump to would be One for the Road, which covers the Animal Grace tour. Isn't it just funny that there are all these... I know, it just seems so weird for a band like April Wine. Of course, they're a great live band. I get it. But how many live releases have been released? So, we'll go to the next tour. Let's go to the Animal Grace. Oh, there's a live album for that.
This sat on a shelf for 16 years. And
I know, but still, it did come out.
I'm glad it was documented. This one is... of all the April Wine vinyl, I had the hardest time finding this one. This one took me forever to find out.
I've never seen that. Never seen it.
It never came out in the States, even though they were in their Capitol years. But they did. It was a quote unquote farewell tour. At the time, it was. I don't know if they toured outside of Canada on that tour. I'm really not sure about that. Dave can speak to that. I wish they'd use their actual logo instead of the dominoes, but whatever.
That's the thing. We've talked about this on the show.
The
You've
branding,
got such a great
branding.
logo.
Yeah.
Great brand.
Yeah.
Why
this
would you
one-
ever deviate from that? I don't get it.
It's just cheap looking.
It
Anyway,
looks horrible. Go back to the
but
logo.
now this is similar to the King Biscuit, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
you're only one more tour. Now, what I like about this is they do This Could Be the Right One. It's the only thing I've ever heard live from either Animal Grace or Walking Through Fire. I don't know if they ever did anything off Walking Through Fire. I know there was no tour for that album, but I don't know if they ever dug anything up years later. But I love the medley they do on here. Now, maybe one of the reasons this didn't come out in the States is because they do dip back into that pre-Capitol stuff. Great medley of Like a Lover, Like a Song, Coming Right Down on Top of Me, and Rock and Roll is a Vicious Game. Now, again, unreleased on CD for years until the good folks at Unidisc put it out. And they added, there's 4 tracks added to this. Before the Dawn, which of course always goes over great.
Oh, classic.
Future Tense, Schizoid Man, and Ooh, What a Night, which, like the King Biscuit, has Miles singing lead, which I prefer to Steve Lang singing lead, but I still like Jim Clinch singing on it more.
Right.
Now, there is some video footage from this. There is a live version of the live version of Roller. I've seen a video from this, which always made me wonder, does this entire concert exist on video? If so, where the heck is it? This is my personal favorite. I like the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I like the song selection. But the King Biscuit one is darn close. The King Biscuit one is great if you love Power Play, because they do so many deep tracks from Power Play, like Dave said before about the first live album, that they never did again.
Nope.
So it's good for that. But yeah, this I would recommend this to a casual fan that knows Just Between You and Me and Roller and I Like to Rock and Gypsy Queen. They're all on here.
But you like it with the additional tracks, though. Let's say you take
I know that
you even like it
standard,
without those standard.
The
one.
standard 11 track version is fine. I like the fact they added those tracks, but I mean, but that's the only CD there is of it with those extra songs. So
Right.
Unless you get their box set, which just has a disc called Live, which is all of the songs on One for the Road. There's like 3 from the El Mocambo and 1 from the first one. And it always made me angry. It's like, why don't you just put the live albums out in their entirety? It took years before that happened.
Yeah. Well, Dave, what's your thoughts on One for the Road?
Well, this album sounds really good. So that's the first thing I'll talk about is that
well, it's Mike. It was produced. Mike Stone and Miles Goodwin produced it. I'm assuming. I don't know. Did Mike Stone ever did he go out and record? Because he was an engineer too.
This just says produced by Miles Goodwin and engineered by Paul Northfield, which is
Paul Northfield.
Yeah, okay. So he would know.
But I think Mike Stone produced it, so maybe Paul Northfield record. Okay. I don't know.
See Mike Stone's name on here, but it doesn't.
What I'm seeing is Mike Stone.
Produced by Miles Goodwin using the facilities of FNL Music, or if you say that, engineered by Paul Northfield. I don't know.
Well,
all right.
Anyway,
sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. It sounds excellent. The thing about this show was it was supposed to be the last concert. You know, like so many bands, it wasn't the last concert.
Well, it's the last concert with this lineup. The classic lineup.
It was the last but it wasn't the last time we got to see, we got to see Brian Greenway, Jerry Mercer again, and then of course Jim Clench came back, but he wasn't on this album. The thing you were asking before, Tim, this was supposed to be mainly a Canadian tour. I did look on their site. It looks like they did play St. Louis. St. Louis really liked April Wine. Their number 1 city in all of the United States is St. Louis. And I remember Nature of the Beast was particularly popular in St. Louis. I remember back in the day I used to read Cashbox magazine and used to talk about that. But one thing about this show was after kind of burying the catalog pre-First Glance, they did bring some back. And I've talked about this in another show. I think somebody dug into the catalog, found Like a Lover, Like a Song. Like I've told you, I think that is my favorite April Wine song. I think it's a fantastic song. I still to this day can't believe it never really took off the way I think it should, because it sounds perfect to me. It's very catchy. It could be played on all different kinds of radio stations, and yet, April Wine fans loved the song. It didn't quite have the it didn't quite catch on the way I would have thought. But anyway, they did make a video of it. It was played very frequently on Much Music. That video of him playing Like a Lover, Like a Song, and you can see that on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can see that. I'll tell you an annoyance I have of this album. I cannot stand the fact that he did not play all of Coming Right Down on Top of Me, because I can't find a live version of that song. I talk about my 4 favorite April Wine songs. That's one of them, and I can't find a live version anywhere, and except for that one verse.
Not complete.
Yeah, but he doesn't play a melody really of Rock and Roll's a Vicious Game. He plays the whole song, and
they do the whole song.
And it's a fantastic version, by the way. But I just, every other song they played the entire song. Why do you have to cut that one? It's just an annoyance for me. That's what they decide to do. But anyway, they made a video of that too. That was also played frequently on Much Music back in the day. I don't know if those videos were played in the United States. I mean, if the album wasn't released, I'm guessing not. So I'm guessing maybe MTV didn't play them. But anyway, as we know, this was supposed to be the end. And sure enough, this happened in '84. 8 years later, it took 8 years for them to come back and start having any rendition of the band play live again. So yeah. Now this was the concert I missed. So I did see Harder Faster, as I mentioned, saw Nature of the Beast, saw Power Play, but I did not get to see this one. And when I found out they dug up some of the old songs, I was kicking myself the next day, especially because I heard they played Like a Lover, Like a Song. I was so disappointed I missed that. So
all right. Excellent. So we have this record. The next live record that comes out isn't until 2003. So it's Greatest Hits Live 2003. There you go, Tim. Miles Goodwin, Brian Greenway, Jim Clinch, Jerry Mercer, and Carl Dixon playing guitar. It's not the classic lineup, but they're back either way. And this came out on CD as a 2 CD set, kids. Amazing, after all these years. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this, Tim? What's your thoughts on this record?
It's funny because, like I said, I've seen them more than any other band. I saw them in 2000. I didn't see them again until 2005. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see them with Carl Dixon. And as anyone knows, I'm a huge Coney Hatch fan. With him joining again, for the first time since '94, they were a 5-piece. They had the 3 guitars, which they need for certain songs. They're such great musicians that Miles and Brian could do it with 2 guitars, but it's better if you've got 2 guys playing the harmony solo, you still get that rhythm guitar, especially the solos in Roller. But anyway, this goes all over the place as far as, like, by now, it's like, we're April Wine, we're going to play April Wine songs. So you've got, the band has just begun from Electric Jewels. They're doing Come Hear the Band from Stand Back, Victim for Your Love from Stand Back. So Weeping Widow.
Won't go there.
Bad Side of the Moon. And yes, because they were promoting, it was the Back to the Mansion era, so they won't go there. And they do Holiday, which is a fantastic song, as we talked about.
Fantastic, yeah.
And there's 2 studio songs on here. That's Who I Am, This Is What I Do, and Strong Silent Type. I got to be honest, neither of those songs stick to me. I can't even think of how they go. I know I've listened to them, but it's April Wine. They're one of the tightest bands I've ever seen in any lineup. Yes. So pretty much, if you get a live recording of them, it's going to sound good. They don't seem to do, sloppy. It's a great. They do a lot of songs and they cover a lot of ground. They do Like a Lover, Like a Song on here. And then Rock and Roll is a Vicious Game. But as Paul just pointed out, they did do Come Right Down on Top of Me, which I have to wonder if they even did that on the First Glance tour. I don't know, because it is a slower song for them. It is a great song, but
it was done.
I actually didn't get this.
They did do it on the Harder Faster tour. Actually, it's funny. I remember details. He did it in the encore. He literally came back in the encore carrying a keyboard and put it down and played that song.
Oh, awesome. That would have been cool. So I didn't get this when it came out. When I saw them in 2005, they were selling this at the merch booth, so I bought it. It's not one I reach for all the time, but it's definitely good. And I really wish that they'd filmed it too. I wish they'd put this out on DVD. they could have made a nice little package out of it. But there you go.
I'm just curious, real quick, those unreleased studio tracks, That's Who I Am, This Is What I Do, and Strong Silent Type. Do we know any background from where those came from? Or were those Back to the Mansion tracks? I don't know. Does anybody know?
They sound, I think it's more of like I said, I haven't listened to them in quite a while. It's more of a dry production, I think, than Back to the Mansion. They almost put you more in mind of Roughly Speaking. They're definitely of the early 2000s era, for sure. They're not old songs from way back. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
have a lot of thoughts on those songs.
I can't find any info on it. Maybe Miles talks about that in his book that I still need to read.
I don't think so, because I was kind of curious about it. Although he does, it is funny because he does kind of downplay Carl Dixon's involvement. And apparently somebody asked Carl about what he thought about that, and Carl just said no comment.
No comment.
So,
okay. Well, there you go. Dave, what's your thoughts on this one?
I remember finding this in the CD store, and I have to say I've been digging around today trying to find it, but I do have it somewhere. I just remember how excited I was to see how many different how many albums are represented, and actually I count 8 in total, and I'm not including the newer songs.
Yeah.
And I particularly like the fact that they had live versions of "Victim for Your Love" and "Come Hear the Band" because those are 2 of my favorite songs, and can't find them on any other live albums. I did see them perform both of those in the Comeback Tour in 1992, because I remember how excited I was to hear those. As I said, it sounds great. You know, Brian Greenway, Jim Clench, Miles Goodwin, can't beat that, and Jerry Mercer, of course. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for sort of one live album that's going to represent the entire catalog, this is the one to get, and you won't be disappointed with the sound, you won't be disappointed with the vocal.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a greatest hit with some deep tracks thrown in.
Yeah.
I do agree. Yeah.
There is one thing I really like about it. You can tell that it's live because all over town, when they started, they started really slow, and then it's almost, you could feel them go, okay, pick it up, because they started playing like they say, okay, not that slow, pick it up. By the time the drums kick in, it's at full speed, so it's almost like they're looking at each other, and like, you know, I don't know. That's just a nice little touch that tells, you know, you're seeing a live band on stage. And yeah, the albums are well represented on here. I mean, they on record, Electric Jewel, Stand Back. Yeah, there's no real, I mean, they don't do every single album. I noticed that they, at a certain point, they stopped doing any songs from Attitude or Frigate, because I saw them in 94, and then 4 years later I saw them again, and the only song they did from either of those albums was If You Believe in Me, and that's because somebody requested it from the crowd. So I don't know if that was even in the set, because when I saw them in 94, they probably did 4 or 5 songs from each of those albums, and they still found room to mix in the classics. But anyway, if those albums fell out of print and you can't get them anymore, I guess why would you promote them? So
good point. That's probably why they didn't.
Yeah.
So real quick before we wrap this up, Tim Durling, which one would be your recommendation after looking at all these?
Still One for the Road with King Biscuit, just by a hair behind it.
Dave Lubin, what's your thoughts? What's your
I think I would actually pick, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go
No, that's hey, we talk about them. You can change your mind.
I think I'm going to go with actually Live 2003, just because I think that's the one where you can find the biggest variety. If you're looking for sort of a raw sound, a raw bar band April Wine sound from the past, then I go with Live at the El Mocambo. Plus, there's all the history behind that particular event. So,
okay, well put. We're getting all different answers. I'm going to go with the King Biscuit one because it's got all that material from Brain Problem. Help me.
Power Play.
Power Play, for God's sakes. I have another show coming up. I'm trying to, I'm all frazzled. I like that, and I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with 2003 because it does give a nice sampling of the whole career. So Which one's the best? I don't know. We all have our different opinions, but it's fun to
None
talk
of them
about.
are all that bad. Like they don't really have any bad sounding live albums, which is
Well, they don't really. They
quite
all
a
sound
feat
good.
considering all of these different lineup changes. Whatever lineup they were touring, and they always gelled on stage.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we've come up with anything, a solid pick, but I think based on listening to the panel, I think you're pretty good with any of them. It just depends.
Yeah.
I guess if you knew what era of April Wine you like, then you could go there, but they're all great,
Here, let's put it this way. If you're listening to classic rock radio in the States,
Mm-hmm.
go with King Biscuit or One for the Road. If you're
Okay.
up here in Canada listening to classic rock radio, go with the Greatest Hits 2003.
There you go.
Because you'll know the songs, or you'll know the majority of them.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody down the States, if it wasn't that classic era, I don't
If
think
it
a lot
wasn't
of people
between
know
like
that.
78 and 82, they probably don't know it.
No.
Yeah.
No, they were just a blip on the screen.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I think we've talked about it. I want to thank Tim Durling and Dave Lubin here tonight. A little panel, but hey, we hit it out of the park. We talked about these live records. Next up, we're going to do our ranking of the April Wine albums, and that'll probably come next month. I'll send some dates out. Anybody have anything to add before we wrap it up? I think I'm good. Tim, Dave?
I'm good.
All right. I want to thank Tim Durling and Dave Lubin tonight for coming on and talking April Wine. Till next time, we will see you on Grant's Rock Warehouse.